Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to.
Are we unmuted? I hereby call this meeting to order. We will stand and do the flag salute, please. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do the roll call of counselors and excused absences.
Leslie. Here. Paul Beagle,
Here.
Katie. Here. Junior,
Who's the excused absence?
Isaac,
Here.
Brenda,
Here.
Paul Kiefer.
Here. All right, so we have a quorum. We will go on to the next for approval of minutes, March 2nd, 2021.
Those were very lengthy minutes this time.
Well, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes as written for March 2nd, 2021.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Wait a
Aye.
minute, I have a question before you.
Okay, question. What do you have, Mr. Beagle?
In reading the minutes, during Mr. Lee's presentation, it identifies phase one well collector number 3, yet it doesn't follow the procedure. As you read half that paragraph, it says collector 2, the word 2, and at the bottom of the page, it says collector 3, word 3. Also collector 3, collector 2. I would propose that when we present minutes or other articles, that we follow the same pattern so that there's not a deviation. Instead of writing number 3, the number 3, write the word 3 as it is written the rest of this presentation.
Okay, so you're saying that it's not consistently written,
That's
it's
exactly
number
what I'm saying.
3 and then they use a Roman numeral 3,
No,
then they use 3 or.
they use the number 3 and then they use the words.
Okay,
2
so
or
it's the
3.
number and word. I got you.
That was the only item that I identified as inconsistent.
Copy. Push your button.
I did,
Oh.
to make a motion originally. Are we
Oh.
not, should we not use the buttons or?
No, that's fine. I just didn't catch it
Okay.
blinking. I caught it blinking.
No worries.
Some
Sorry.
of us don't have a button.
And that's why we're down here.
Are there any more comments that you would like to input about the minutes?
The March 2nd minutes.
No? Do I have it? Did you have the second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, we have one that is opposed. Paul.
Discuss it further at this point.
Hmm?
It's my understanding typically after we take a vote, then we can have some discussion.
Good, absolutely, if we wanted
Is
to.
that correct or not? Robert's rules
Usually before the vote.
Usually have your discussion before you vote.
Or where we have a discussion, I guess I'm lost. Discussion, well, you have the discussion, that's where I was thinking Mr. Beagle was having the discussion. Did you have a discussion that you wanted to?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes. Minutes are approved. Are there any introductions? Let's see, we got, I guess that would be the people that are on Zoom, I would imagine. So I see Mr. Barry. I see Tracy Johnson. Is that Mr. Tallman over on the far? Yep, it's Mr. Tallman. That must be Marta Barajas, Jackie McCauley, and Galaxy J7 are, I don't know who that is.
It's the device.
Maybe they could identify themselves.
Excuse me?
Maybe they could identify themselves.
Galaxy J7, would you please identify yourself, please? No, sorry, they are.
Mr. Mayor, also for Mr. Johnson changed, and his name is Doug Johnson rather than Tracy.
Doug Johnson. Okay, welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody on virtual to our meeting today. Introductions are complete. How about we go into our financial report ending March 31st, 2021.
We sent those out to you yesterday. Once we got all the bank statements, we got those all put together. And I would entertain any questions if anybody has any.
Marta, just so you know, just late this afternoon, I sent out a copy of the March of 2020 and March of 2021. Brenda had called me and asked if we had any, so that you could kind of see what the difference was in the last year, from one year to the next. And so, and that's just a reference thing. It's not necessarily needs to be in the packet. It's just so that you know that they're looking at that.
Oh, okay. And yeah, this has been an unusual year, as it has been all around for everybody. And some of the resolutions that we have today have to do with some of that uniqueness of some of those additional grants that were issued because of coronavirus.
Yes, I called Martha today to ask her some questions about the general fund and the 137% over budget, putting us at over $2 million, what we budgeted to receive. And she took some time to explain to me where some of that money came from.
So the 137 just is identifying that we have received, we have more money.
Well, we budgeted to receive at the 100%
Above
mark,
budget.
and so we've received over a
Of what we
third more than
budgeted,
what we
that we
budgeted,
did,
which totals out $2 million.
Yeah.
$2,250,000. Which I thought was a pretty big deal. I also noticed that in our savings, we have a very large chunk of money that we've managed to accrue. Probably due to some good stewardship or something.
Well, and I was going to start to say that when we did the water sewer thing, we paid for that out of our savings account.
Yes.
We didn't borrow or we didn't do anything else. We've worked and saved until we get money enough to do a project. And then we can go out and do the project. So,
And I was part of the council when we made that decision to do it.
yeah, savings is,
Very important.
well, it's nice to get interest income and not interest outgo. So,
What does OR government pool was for 17 million? What's that?
That is the Oregon government pool. It's where we have our money. It's with the state treasurer. And so just about all the municipalities have their money there. And then we don't have to worry about being FDIC insured.
Oh, I got you.
And so when you look at that cash report down there, that totals all of the money that we have in our funds.
that figure and the figure that's on the very far right on the double line should be the same figure.
So that includes, you know, the city's general fund. It includes the building fund. as you can see, the majority of our funds lay there with the state treasurer at they call it the Oregon Government Pool.
So we don't have to put all our money in our local institutions then, we just put it in our big funds in with the Oregon government.
Well,
Yes,
see, banks only insure your money, FDIC insure up to a certain dollar value, so.
Right,
if
that's
you
what I-
exceed
that's
that,
what
you
I
have to
mean, we
go
just-
someplace else to say that. Secure.
And she has written on that interest rate side, I just thought it would be interesting for you to know how much interest each of those entities are paying. So it's not at 0.6, you're not getting rich, but at least.
No.
So,
it's been decreasing every month, and so that's our latest and greatest. All of them are under 1%.
I made $18 million, I have to find a bank to put in. Any other questions about our financial statement? Okay, moving right along, we'll go to our audit report.
Those are fresh, hot off the press. They literally arrived in the mail today. And I sent you an electronic copy earlier today when I received it. So I don't know how many of you have had time to read the entire thing. But there's nothing unusual. It's a clean audit. And due to coronavirus, just like everything else with people working from home, working remotely, this took longer to get back to us than what we had anticipated. And like I said, it literally arrived in the mail today. But it is something that comes before the city council for your approval, just accepting the audit from our CPA firm that we use. Just
Mr. Beagle, you had a question?
I do. On page
Okay.
70 of this report, at the bottom of the page, it states that the city was not in compliance with the Oregon Local Budget Law, ORS 294, as it pertains to the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020, as expenditures exceeded appropriations in the following categories. And it relates to the garbage fund 60. Could she address that, please?
okay, let me pull that up.
Could you repeat the page, please?
Page 70, the bottom of the page.
I'm scrolling, getting there, sorry. As it pertains to the fiscal year ending 30 as expenditures. And services.
Just didn't understand what the last sentence of their explanation was for.
Well, that's why I wanted somebody to explain it to me.
The transfers appropriations are allowed, but only to the extent they reduce original appropriations to zero, and these transfers should not exceed appropriation amounts.
And I think that has to do with the ORS.
Right, they
Four,
gave
but
the
I'm not sure.
explanation. So what, I don't know what we did.
And it also talks about the street tax fund, 250 contingency also in there. So those are two areas of concern.
I think the garbage. Are you gonna talk, Marta?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm gonna have to look back to get the exact details on that because that was a while ago. So to be exact, I would want to research that and get back to you with an accurate response.
That seems
I
fair enough.
appreciate that.
Did you have something, Karen, you wanted to say?
I think what the deal was with the garbage is that if they bill us 2 months, I'm gonna let her look it up, because it has to do with billing and when we pay. It's not that we owed anything or was doing anything wrong. It is strictly that account, we carry hardly any money in it. I mean, it's practically, it's not a revenue stream for the city of Boardman. It pays for its expenses and passes through. And I think that we either overspent on that line item because we paid that bill too soon, or we underspent going the other way. So she'll look it up. We'll bring you the real answer, but it was.
Yeah,
it-
yeah, that's
Well-
kind of what I'm remembering, but I want to make sure that that is what they're referring to exactly, but.
Okay, on the next section, it addresses internal control, and it talks about a deficiency, that's on page 71. Material weakness, a material weakness or a significant deficiency, they bring those two items up. So if you could talk on that as well, when you come back.
That one, it's a tough one with us being so small with the office staff. It has to do with dividing the duties and making sure that you don't have too few people involved in the process, so that there's multiple people who are doing the different steps. And where our finance department is me, and Tony does all of our utility, Jackie does all of our building permit fees, Heather did all of our payroll. There's not a lot that gets across one department to another for those multiple checkpoints. But it is something that we are aware of, and it is something that Karen and I have been talking about here recently, and trying to find more of those checkpoints and where we can add staff to help with some of that. It's just adding those checkpoints that says, you know, if somebody's taking the deposits, is there somebody else doing the next step? Just so that there's somebody else who has an intermediary step in there and not all falling just on one individual.
Well, and like here, Jackie, then I have been, or the city opens the mail, then, you know, then it's dispersed. So the money, the people that deposit the money are not the ones that get the mail, so that you can't skim, you know, people paying their bill through the mail and things like that. So we have a pretty good internal control. You have to understand that these are pretty much standard in audit things for small businesses. This isn't, I mean, this, if he had come tonight to speak to you, he would probably tell you that this isn't a big deal. This is just because you're small enough that you don't have 5 people to handle, you know, the jobs, that you only have 3. And so.
Well, it was significant that you mentioned it, and I don't understand, so I'm
No, and-
asking the
No, and I
question.
agree with that. No, you should, because this is why this is why the audit report comes to you in the mail rather than to the city to disperse to you. But since we're so late and we said, you have got to get this to this meeting, they sent it to us so we could put it on your desk. Otherwise, you would receive this at home, and the auditor would come and speak to you and he would answer these kind of questions for you. So next year, we'll try to make arrangements so that if you have questions that they can be.
We don't fail the audit though, correct?
No.
This
no.
just kind of like points out a weakness that we need to be aware of, according to ORS, that due to our size, that we need to make sure that we are having checks and balances as meant is what I'm thinking of, is to make sure that don't get complacent on individuals. We make it easier for them to
Right.
take money or to be dishonest.
They don't want you to let the person that opens the mail do the bank deposits. I mean, that needs to be two separate people.
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to go through all of it. It's just that these things caught my eye.
No, and
So-
neither have we.
Yeah, I would like to, like, if we can, table this until, say, the next meeting, so we have an opportunity to digest it, go through it, and raise questions if we have the opportunity to do so.
If you'll get your questions in advance so that we're prepared to answer them, that would be helpful.
That I can do.
So 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Well, what would you like, 2 weeks?
No, we'll do it at the next meeting.
No, I mean, for the questions.
Oh,
When would you like the deadline? I mean, 2 weeks to have all questions in, then your staff has, or the staff
Yeah,
has 2
that'd be
weeks
good.
to prepare.
That's
how's
reasonable.
that, Marta?
Sounds good.
Individuals who have questions about the audit can submit those no later than,
Well,
2
today's
weeks from
7
now.
21st.
is it the 21st?
It is.
I believe you. So
Well,
that would
and-
be the 21st.
And I guess we could have had them zoom in. I never thought about asking the auditors to come by Zoom.
Well, really, it wouldn't have done any good tonight anyway, because, like you said, we just got it,
There,
and we don't have an opportunity to go through it, really,
no, I agree.
so.
So let's make sure that if you have questions, that they're no later than the 21st.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
We'll take a look at the audit. We'll deal with the audit next.
I would like to, when Marta and Karen come up with a plan, I'd like to see that plan. At the next
Plan
meeting
for what?
For the internal control.
I doubt that it's gonna change. I think, I guess part of the conversation Marta and I are having, now that we're hiring a new, we've been understaffed 6 months.
Okay,
So that makes a difference. And so those are the kind of things her and I discussed. Like, okay, I can look at the mail. I don't open it. Maybe Tony opens it now. Maybe Marta, I think, probably opens it. So, I mean, those are the kind of things, but yes, we'll talk to you.
yeah,
about it.
it's identified in here and, to show that we are moving forward and we realize that there is a deficiency or a red flag or a task identifier, we can address that the next time we get audited. Have a plan on paper, have a hard copy of it so we can go from there.
Because I think it's gonna be tough to remedy it.
Well, if
We
you
can have a plan.
right, and that shows the auditor that, well, we are aware of it and we're working towards mitigating.
You know,
But
the other-
we still may have a deficiency though.
Well.
Well, can I say something? As you're discussing, I reread that and I think there was a misunderstanding. So the first paragraph says that it says, in planning and performing our audit of the financial statements, we considered the city's internal control over financial reporting to determine the auditing procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances for the purpose of expressing our opinions on the financial statements, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control over financial reporting. Accordingly, we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control over financial reporting. And then the second paragraph just goes on to give you the definitions. So it's not saying that we have a significant deficiency, it's just giving you an explanation of what a significant deficiency is, of what a material weakness is, and what a deficiency in internal controls is. But when they say they do not express an opinion for an audit, that's actually good. That's the wording that they use when they say you're sufficient, when there isn't, that means they didn't find anything that's significant.
Thank you, Marta.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we will table the audit. If you have questions, 21st of this month to get them in by. Pre-range presentation, Lori Driggs.
Hi.
You are on.
Okay. So good evening. Thank you, Mayor and councilors, for having me tonight. Oh, you want me to come to the mic?
Yes, we're unfortunately. You stand up and be heard.
All right, I don't have problem being heard, I can tell you that much.
The whole year.
So thank you guys for having me tonight. I'm here to present the dog park project organized by the BCDA. This has been a huge priority on our community discussions that we've had probably over the last 5 or 6 years. And we finished the disc golf course here recently for 2020, and going into 2021, this is our priority project for this year. I sent you guys in your packet is about 19 pages of things that's going into this park, but we can just kind of hit the highlights tonight. I feel like this is a partnership between BCDA, Port of Morrow, and the city of Boardman. And with the increased traffic in Boardman, and with the need, and not only for our locals, but also for our travelers, by offering this for our travelers, it is an opportunity to get people off of 84, because visibility from 84, and to get them into our gas stations, our restaurants, into our community, and they can see more than what they see on 84 going by. Also, they have opportunity to meet with our locals and get to know our community a little bit more. And also, it's an opportunity for our locals to have a place to go with their dogs and be able to even meet new community members as well. So it's an opportunity for everybody all around. So once Chief is done setting the temperature, he will bring up the concept design that I have come up with. You guys have it in your packet as well. And as you can see, this is going to be located on lot 600. So if you are right there, yep, kind of at an angle, but it'll work. So Front Street, Northeast Front Street, and you go down to 4th Street. 4th Street is the dead end street that is just to the west of the storage units down there. And then you can see this lot is going to run, it's 223 feet north and south, and it's 200 feet east and west. And that corner from 4th Street and Front Street is kind of a radius corner due to the street, so we'll lose some space in there. So we've also proposed to bring in a gravel parking lot between the dog park and the grass field, which was now called a multi-purpose field. And this is, if you guys have ever been down there during events, Northeast Front Street is only a 25-mile-an-hour zone, but people think they need to go 40, and there is no parking. And we have a lot of kiddos crossing that street back and forth. So this is a safety opportunity we can bring in, utilize the lot between the dog park and the multi-purpose field. And by putting it into gravel, it's an opportunity that you can use it later on for something else, or it can maintain a gravel parking lot. And then we have created the dog park to be accessed from the gravel parking lot. So once again, you're not on the street. So we're adding the safety feature here. And then you go into a holding area, and from there you go to the small dog park, the small dog area, and a large dog area. So this is just shy of an acre. It's a pretty good size. Standard dog parks range from half an acre to an acre to 500 acres if you go some places. So we're kind of offering the in between. This will also get this off of the city sugar grass. It'll get the dogs off our multi-purpose field and give everybody an opportunity to get their dogs into a safe area to play. So that being said, so going to the budget now, you'll see that BCDA has, we have budgeted $25,000 into this project. The total project is going to be right around $56,000. I'm coming to you guys tonight to see if you guys would be interested in partnering with us on this project so we can bring this forward. This project is pretty much gonna take the entire year because we're gonna have to, Port of Morrow's gonna come in and level the land for us. That's gonna be an in-kind donation from the Port of Morrow. And the cost of fencing, we've already have a couple bids, and this is the lowest bid that was come in at 26, well, like more or less $27,000. Gravel parking lot, you can see is at 9,100. Irrigation, when I was speaking with the employees here at the city, we were discussing that the prices of everything is going up drastically every single day. PVC was starting to hit that hike as well. So Kevin with Public Works decided that we pre-purchased those. So he already has the irrigation purchase for this project and he got it at $25,000. So from there, you can see in the concept design that there's a lot of options that you can bring in. Benches, waste deposit spots, there's like doggy fountains, all sorts of things you can bring in to make this like kind of a more of a better space. This will be a fenced in lot with cyclone fencing. The fencing will be black coated, so it won't be just your standard galvanized fencing. We will have a curb around it, so that it allows for ease of mowing and it allows for keeping dogs from digging under the fence and ruining our fence. It'll be about a 4-foot tall fence. We will have access points into the small dog area and the large dog area for maintenance work. Those will be 12-foot gates plus 5-foot man gates coming in and out. So this is our, and we'll create some signage for it. We will do some park benches, the Fido fountain, and then for an extra cost, if you guys want to add it, during the project now, we can, it's an ultra site kit, and that brings in a bunch of these little extra jumping hoops and benches and things the dogs can go and play on, instead of just having open grass. You can see the rover jump over, pause tables, grooming tables, stepping paws, doggy crawl, king of the hill, hoop jump. And those are just kind of fun things to add, just additional stuff. So, and we can add up to as many benches as we can. I just kind of put in 2 at this point in time. So that is where we're at. So it's a total cost of around $56,000. So at this time, does anybody have any questions for me? And I just, yes.
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
On the parking lot, would that then be available for anybody to use if you're at the multi-purpose facility or the dog park?
Yep, we see it as an opportunity to get get people off the frontage road and be able to park in it. That parking lot is gonna be just shy of an acre as well. So it's a pretty good sized parking lot.
Got it. And will there be any areas within the dog park that are covered, shaded areas if you want to sit?
That was something that we were gonna discuss. I looked into it. It's about a $10,000, $15,000 additional cost. So we weren't sure if we were gonna add it this year or add it into like our budget part of the following year and continue to add to this project to improve the benefits there.
Perfect. And then lastly, do we have an anticipated cost for ongoing maintenance and who is responsible for cleaning the park?
So that was a discussion we have to have with the Park and Rec. Currently, the Park and Rec maintains that area from mowing and stuff, and that will be a discussion we can have after with the city and with the Park and Rec on who was gonna cover those costs.
Thank you.
Any other
The city-
questions?
The city contracts with the Park and Rec District to take care of a number of our parks. Whether they're willing for us to continue to expand when it's hard to find employees. Maybe another conversation for us to have. Because they've not raised their price. Well, I've been here 13 years and they haven't raised their price in 13 years. And you all know everybody's gotten a raise probably every year since for 13 years. So Ted and I'll sit down and have a conversation when I'm off of the park board.
So the city of Boardman was going to help pick, let's say, pick up the rest above and beyond the 25,000. Where does that come? Does that come out of our general fund?
And in my notes, I I was telling Tori, I must have been, I didn't feel good yesterday, but I must have been delirious. Trying to make my notes, I asked you if you will just budget 50 or 60,000.
Please. We can get those numbers, areas and all that done right now.
That was my question, it's like, okay, I saw your note that you said, and I was like,
I never, I mean,
it included, must have included the BCDA funds.
I tell you, I didn't feel good. I wanted to get the project done. Because I really was thinking if you would do like 25 or 30,000, that would get us that would even get us some of those toys, because if you look in your packet, she included a picture of the toys that would be available in there. And if maybe,
Well, I've seen Hermiston's. It looks pretty plain Jane.
It's pretty basic.
It looks like a fence
It does.
with and so, I'm looking at our general fund budget, and if I'm reading it right, total, would it be correct to look at the total revenue column on what we have? It says $8 million.
I don't think you ought to look at that. I
Okay,
think
so
you ought to
if I'm
sit
looking
there-
at $6 million,
No, I think you ought to sit here and say, okay, I'd like to contribute 25,000 to a new park area.
well, I get that. I'm just saying, we got lots of money.
Responsible.
We got lots of money, so why not? What else are we gonna spend it on?
We've got ideas.
Yeah, I mean, let's spend it. The taxpayers pay the money, let's give them 25, 30 grand.
Okay, let's give them 25 or 30 grand.
I'm not saying pay.
There's 5,000 difference there. We need to come up with a solid number.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying, pay and get it done.
Can I ask a question?
You sure may.
Tori, do you have any other contributors that?
No, we do not. Just pretty much to be a partnership financially, fiscally between you guys and BCEA. Port Memorial is just gonna offer the dirt work. And I'm gonna tell you, if by getting the dirt work covered in kind by the Port Memorial, that's saving us close to $80,000, $90,000 probably. Because it's a huge piece of property. It's 2 acres that you're gonna have to level for us and grade off and do all that. And they're gonna do it when they're doing projects in the area. So it's not taking our crews completely way away from the other projects. They're gonna make it when they're in the area. And then this is gonna have to be grassed. So this is not gonna be open to the public until pretty much 2022, because we have to let the grass, or late 2021, because we have to let the grass come up, we're gonna have to get sprinkler system installed, we're gonna have to get fencing installed. This is gonna be a process, so, and that's why I'm just here, just so we can get this project started and see if you guys are interested in being partners on this fiscally also, and it's a huge need for our community. And it'd just be great to provide something like this to our community.
It's a great start to be able to start spending some money and start doing some things, because we have projects. We got some projects that are a couple $1 million. And why not get a $50,000 project going so people can see where their tax money's going? Instead
And,
of just thinking the city keeps it.
yeah, and it's a great beautification project as well for your city. It's gonna be a nice another green area that's gonna look attractive and get rid of the sagebrush out of the areas. And when you're driving northeast Front Street, going to the state center and the rec center and for BMTC for Personal, it's just gonna be more attractive for our community.
And when soccer ball goes there, it'll get gravel and fence.
I'd like to
Oh.
move that we,
Before Mr. Beagle had a question. I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I do have a question. Now, I don't know if when I was reading the numbers and everything that you mentioned it or not, so. Who's gonna pay for the water that goes to keep it green? Who's gonna be responsible for turning it on, turning it off?
Partnership with the city of Marvin and the park. And that's a carry.
This has got nothing to do with the park and rec. Let's decide that.
Okay.
We're asking you if you would like to help make another city park. If you don't want a city park, then you say, no, I don't think we need a city park.
No, I just wanna know who's gonna pay for it.
It's gonna be the city, it's a city park. We are lucky that BCDA is willing to chip in 25,000.
Okay,
And otherwise, it would be up to the city. I mean, that's part of our duties as city, is you provide park space and stuff.
okay, so basically the citizenry will be paying for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I don't think that you need to make a motion. We're asking you for some kind of approval that we will put in the budget process. We just wanted,
You don't think we need a motion?
well, I don't care, you can make a motion, I don't care, but I think here is what I see as being the problem. BCDA has money, we do the community enhancement things, we get this list that the community says they want to see happen in Boardman. And we go out and do them. This time, I said, I think we ought to come talk to the city council. Because we'll budget money for parks. So, I mean, and whether we put a park there or somewhere else, there'll probably be money in our budget for a park. I just thought it would be nice if you guys knew that we were wanting to put a park there, that we have somebody that we can do a couple of getting other people to help us out and not have to do the full bearing of that price.
Probably, I think it's a great idea.
Well, and it would be great to have that visual cleaned up. And those kids, and the safety of the kids, because last year, BCDA and, Lamb Weston ended up paying for the fence around the edge of the splash pad, so the kids would not get carried away chasing each other and end up out in the street. So as a city, we realized that that parking lot would be hands down one of the best things we could do up there. So lots of people want a dog park. We've got extra property and somebody that'll pay for the fence and.
I think we should have a motion. I think we should have a motion. Did you want to say something?
I do. I would like to move that we budget at least $30,000 to support the construction of the dog park.
Question. Anybody got some questions or discussion?
Well, I think we've been discussing it.
Correct, we have. I just want to make sure that we did it before we seconded. Because
I-
after we second,
Well, actually, you second it and then you question and then it goes.
and then vote. Okay, I stand corrected.
So I'll make the second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Kiefer has been corrected. It will be questioned. That's fine for me.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor.
You bet.
Actually, another question. Who's going to be policing when we have, say, for example, a disruptive dog handler, dog owner, get a dog fight? How's that gonna play with the city being responsible?
So at the dog park, I can answer most of that. At the dog park, there are signs that says, enter at your own risk. You are liable for your own dog. You are liable for your own pickup of your dog. There's a list of rules when you come in signage. There are rules after rules that we will have in English and Spanish for our community, and it will just state that. And you it's a kind of an enter at your own risk type place, and you take care of your own animal.
Watch Judge Judy. Dog parks around it all the time.
Yeah. And that's why we have the liability signage gonna be on the fencing when you enter the area.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, carries, motion carries.
Start building tomorrow.
Okay, thank you for having me here in person. It's easier to talk to you guys and speak and have these presentations in person.
You bet. Thank you, I appreciate it. Public comment, do we have any public comment?
Mr. Goodman.
Yes, I do. This is Jonathan Tallman.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay.
Hear you now.
Yes. All right. Let me go to this. All right. First of all, thank you. This has to do concerning our property out by the Farmer's Cup. Last month, March 1st, received a letter from the city saying that they would like right-of-way access via our property near our place of business at the Farmer's Cup. I was excited to hear about this as it affects businesses, landowners, Portomoro, Umatilla Electric, the new Amazon line that is dedicated for their transmission line to their new data centers there, and Morrow County, as well as the city of Boardman. We have responded to the city. This has been an ongoing issue, and we have looked forward to communication, but to no avail as of yet. There are many working parts to this. I would like to go on the record and finally explain our side of the situation, as well as state that I want to work with the city to get this resolved. Our lawyer just sent out a response as well today. I do look forward to working with everyone involved and want to ask the city, what is their next step if their April 16th deadline as far as what they want to do as far as the process. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do you have a statement or something we'd like to share to that?
No, we'll be discussing real estate in our executive session.
Okay, we'll be discussing real estate in our executive session. Mr. Tallman.
So it concerns our property then in the executive session?
Is it going to be addressing his property in the executive session?
It's going to be discussing property.
It's going to be discussing property.
Okay.
So
So-
others.
So will the city let us at some point in time explain the situation and all the working parts on this then?
Our attorney will be getting a hold of you.
Did you hear that, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, they did, and they said April 16th, they'll just continue on to the next part, the step. And so that's why I'm asking what the next step is. But I still want to work with everybody involved and would love to explain to the city council all the working parts of what's going on.
I think if we see that that's necessary, that we can call a special meeting or something and have you or someone come in and speak to us.
Well, I would really like to state our side on this and be able to communicate, articulate it like everybody else has in the past as well, too.
Just keep going.
Yeah, thanks for his comments.
Okay. As far as we are concerned right now, thank you for your comments, Mr. Tallman. Other public comment, I do believe we have something from Ed Glenn.
In your packet, there was another paper, a memo from Ed Glenn, just asking you to consider his proposal about the
Budget.
yeah, how to spend the franchise fees. That will be something that I think we probably would need to discuss in our budget process.
Was this part of the conversation that we had at the last meeting, where we were
Yes.
talking about possibly doing some investigation about the ability to waive building code fees?
I think
in
it's been
lieu
the last
of-
two meetings.
Yes, okay, so.
This is kind of a letter to the staff then, is how I take it.
Yeah.
On strategies or whatever on how they want to do.
How to manipulate the funds.
We just wanted to, I guess I wanted to make sure that you knew that there's still some correspondence going. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like public comment at this time?
I'd like to give a chamber update.
Oh, your other hat. Okay.
So April Chamber Luncheon is gonna be April 21st at noon for our monthly luncheon update as normal. You can join us by Chamber Live or by Zoom. If you need a Zoom link, you're welcome to email us at info@boardmanchamber.org, and we will send you that Zoom link. New chamber members this month is Oregon Hay Products, Bourbon Liquor Store, and A&A Roofing. And
I'm sorry, who was the last one?
A&A Roofing is Noe Madrigal.
Oh, no, wait.
Yep. And the 2021 virtual Oregon legislation affairs discussion is still going on every Wednesday at 7 a.m. This is being hosted by the Blue Mountain Community College in partnership with Eastern Oregon Chambers. Senator Hansel and Representative Levy is online with us to discuss bills and answer questions. It's held on Zoom. Information can be found on our chamber website for more Zoom links. And also, I gotta say that you guys are probably gonna be getting a lot of updates on legislative updates that are happening right now. Going into April 13th is the deadline for bills to advance out of policy committees in their chamber of origin. This is gonna be where you're gonna see the 11th hour where they're gonna throw in amendments to a lot of things. They're shoving a lot of things down them right now at the legislation level, and things are being passed and things are being overlooked. So we are going to be sending out action alerts to you guys if we need you guys to, our public, our community to support or go oppose these bills. There's some really big ones coming on liquor taxes. They're trying to increase liquor taxes drastically to our beer and wine makers now, which is going to probably devastate our breweries and stuff in our area. So there's going to be some of those coming down. More County COVID-19 vaccine events are happening rapidly around here. We have a huge one going on right now at the State Center. That is a FEMA vaccine event with the J&J Johnson & Johnson vaccine. As a single dose vaccine is no appointment necessary. It's targeting more County residents, but it's kind of open to everybody because we're not getting the numbers that we need to get those vaccines out. They have around 1,000 vaccines to give out. Also, Morrow County Health Department and Columbia River Health and Murray's Drug is also providing Moderna vaccines, and then Columbia River Health, Morrow County Health Department also has availability to Pfizer, and the Pfizer one are recommending to ages 16 and 17, so they're trying to target those kids. So if you know those kids, reach out to Morrow County Health for Morrow County residents. Our RHS Booster Bash is coming up. That's May 15th at 5 p.m. Tomorrow, I think that's tomorrow, no, the 8th, May 8th, from 5 to 6 out front of RHS. You can purchase tickets. They're $25 a piece, and they're only selling 150 of those for food tickets being sold. Food tickets, you can drive through and pick up your meal prior to the event, and the entire event is going to be virtual. So we're excited to say that the State Center is scheduled to reopen Monday, May 3rd. Open our doors. We're going to have guidelines established to keep the staff and our guests safe to enjoy the visit the State Center again. We are going to be starting Science Fridays, Sci-Fi Fridays, and these are going to be held June, July, and August. These are going to be STEAM activities during the summer break, and these activities are going to cover soil and water, bees and commodities, and energy and transportation. So be looking for that. Career Connect 2021 is coming up. Our social media sponsor is River Lodge Cabins and Grill. We're pleased to have them to cover our marketing for social media accounts. The 2020 Virtual Career Connect College and Job Fair is Wednesday, April 28th. 8:30, students will hear from keynote speaker Coach D, Daryl Andrews, and visit colleges and apprenticeship programs. At 11:15, job seekers will meet with over a dozen employees about local job opportunities. You can learn more about the 2020 Virtual Career Connect College and Job Fair at careerconnect2021.com. And this is brought to you by Oregon State University Extension, the Port of Morrow, and the Bourbon Chamber. Other community updates: the Loop is looking for drivers. You may know the driver, they're looking for a driver. River Lodge Cabin and Grills is looking for their own Sam Malone bartender. So to run their new bar area. And C&D and Drive-In and Bakery has job openings. So if you have those kids that have summer jobs, looking for summer jobs, there's jobs available there. And Independent Transport is saying that they have portable restrooms available for weekly and monthly rentals. So, and once again, I'd like to just remind you guys, if your business or your community is something in the community you want to be shared, please reach out to the chamber anytime, and we will share those in our newsletter and across our social medias and at all the meetings I go to. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other events? Sorry, I think it's got rambled with all of events. Any other people that would like to have public comment? Hearing nothing, we'll go to our action items. We have ordinance 1-2021, the cross connection control program, which is our second reading, and we will make a decision. We will be voting on this tonight. So that would mean that we need a motion, correct?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve City of Boardman ordinance 1-2021 as written.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any discussion anybody would like to have on this?
I need to read it by the title.
Is that after it's passed? Oh, before. Okay, so go ahead.
Do we need to read it the way that it? Because our motion needs to be presented as such, as provided.
So the motion, Mr. Beagle, you'll need to read it this way on the paper.
It's on the green sheet.
On what sheet?
It's on two sheets, actually. White or green.
Here was a green sheet.
I'll share mine with you.
Thank you, Henry. Let me amend my motion. I make a motion to read ordinance 1-2021 by title only for the second reading and to approve ordinance 1-2021. An ordinance adopting a cross-connection control program of the city of Boardman and repealing ordinance number 2-2001.
Okay, so we had a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Ordinance 1-2021, adopting a cross-connection control program for the city of Boardman and repealing ordinance number 2-2001.
Thank you. Resolutions 5-2021, a resolution to accept a Columbia River Enterprise Zone 2 grant to the Boardman Police Department. Let's see that.
I would like to move that we accept those grant funds for the police department.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have a question or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, resolution 5-2021.
We need to read these by title. So,
So you need to read it.
yes,
Okay,
so that it's in the public record.
gotcha.
Resolution 5-2021, a resolution to accept a Columbia River Enterprise Zone 2 grant to the Boardman Police Department.
Who seconded that?
Okay.
Resolution 6-2021, a resolution to accept grant from the state of Oregon under the Federal CARES Act.
I'd like to move that we accept the grant from the state of Oregon under the Federal CARES Act, section 601A and D of the Social Security Act, section 5000.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any question or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say the same.
Resolution 6-2021, a resolution to accept a grant from the state of Oregon under the Federal CARES Act, section 601A and D of the Social Security Act, section 5001.
Thank you. Other business, approval of 2021-22 budget calendar.
This is just for your knowledge so that you set these dates aside. But, our first budget committee meeting will be the 18th of May.
Does this need to be approved and voted on?
the budget calendar?
Mhm.
I don't
Or
think
that
so.
they,
Marta, does it need to be voted on? I don't think so, the budget calendar.
they need to approve the,
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute. It does not need a motion, but it does need to be presented to the city council. It's just a formality and one of the requirements.
Well, it's like in May. We're gonna have 2 meetings, or we'll have 3 meetings that month. We'll have a city council meeting and 2 budget meetings, correct?
Not necessarily. We always allow to schedule or allow time in the schedule for a second budget committee meeting if it were to be necessary, but we historically have been able to get it done in just 1 meeting. But because of the amount of days necessary for posting public notice of the meetings, we want to make sure we have enough time if we were to need that second one. That's why we fit it on the schedule.
All right, thank you.
But the 18th is a for sure meeting.
The 18th is for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll have our city council meeting, and then the 18th we'll have our budget committee meeting. In there, 4th and 18th, okay.
Is it on the calendar? I'm kind of looking at it, and I don't see it, the day that we go over the entire budget as a group, or is that a different?
That is May 18th.
Okay, I can only tell you how we've been doing it. We normally, the city staff puts together the budget. We come in, we present it to the city council and the budget committee. There's discussion about, you know, if you want to know what's on this line item, but they usually approve it that night. That's what she's saying. If they don't approve it that night, then it gives us time to have a second meeting, answer any more questions, and you can come back. But it needs to be done. We absolutely need to have the hearing by June 8th. So you can have as many meetings between now and June 8th, probably, I guess, but we won't, the staff probably will not be prepared. I mean, May 18th is around the corner for us.
I just always thought it was a Saturday, kind of a morning until mid-afternoon thing. So I'm kind of surprised that it says Tuesday
I
night.
don't think that, I don't think so. I think that's just our workshop when I bring you in and I talk to you about money, but it isn't the budget. I mean, well, Tom usually has the budget done and
I thought we always did it on Saturday, morning, like a Saturday. You know, Saturday around here did it.
A long time ago, we was still,
Okay.
I was gonna say,
a long time when I was on city council, we took a Saturday to talk about the budget night.
I haven't been gone a decade or anything. I mean,
No, I'm
it's
just
a
talking
year and a half
20
ago.
years ago.
This
That's
is a year and a half ago.
16 to 20. But I couldn't speak on how they changed it and how it maybe grew into something different.
well, and to be honest, I don't remember
That's the only way I
if Tom
remember.
sent it out. Marty, do you know if Tom sent it out ahead of time? Before we have the June 18th or the May 18th meeting?
No, because once the budget is made available to the budget committee, it must be available to the public. And
Okay.
if it's going to be discussed with the city council or with the budget committee, it becomes an official public meeting. And so then it falls under the having to have the public notice with X amount of days before the meeting and so forth.
All right, so we know where we gotta go. We know what we're gonna be doing. Appoint CREZ 3 representatives.
Last Friday, I think that CREZ 3 had a meeting and they're to form their organization. And so we need to be prepared if they have business wanting to site in our jurisdiction, that we need to have our members ready to go. So I'd like for you to nominate, I'd like to get our Pres board set up. And I have recommended.
Okay.
I think I would like to continue to be on there since I've been on there for a number of years. The mayor normally is on there. I've spoken with Brenda Prophet and she thought she could make her time available on any day that we had to have a meeting, and I think that they will try to accommodate us because they know that educators are part of the city council now. And then I was hoping maybe Isaac would be willing to take up on the role as an alternate, which means that it's would be great if you can attend the meetings, just so that you know what's going on and could vote if someone cannot come. And so that would be my recommendation for
May I
that.
ask a question?
Yes.
So it's just, you're just pulling from city council members,
Pardon me?
city council members.
What about,
Are your recommendations that there's nobody else eligible to sit in that position for the CRES board except city council members?
no, that's, and staff.
Okay,
Because staff,
well, this is just, from my understanding, it's very different layout than it has been. So now that that we need representation for boardmen, you're asking for
it is
one
not,
representative or a team?
we're allowed. I think we're allowed up to 3 and an alternate, or if we wanted to have other alternates. And this is not different than it's ever been. Because that was part of the disagreement, is that we can choose and that it does not have to be an elected official. Because when you think about the county commissioners are all paid a wage. So they would, if you were splitting hairs, would probably be no different than me. We all get a wage and we all represent somebody.
But in the past, were you the boardman representative?
In the past, you did what?
In the past, were you our boardman representative?
Yes,
Yes, and now that we're on CRES 3, the layout's a little different, hence why we are now CRES 3, and each area of interest gets their own representation, correct? Right?
but, okay, but before, I was on there, the mayor was on there, Sandy was on there. When Mark Rogelstead was on the board, he was on, and our alternate,
So Brandon Hammond was on there too.
yes. So, I mean, we've always had 2 counselors and an alternate.
How many of those other representatives attended the CRES board meetings and participated on a regular basis?
Well, Mark
It's kind of
Rogelstead
mixed.
always attended, and so did Sandy.
Okay. So is there a limit to how many can participate during, like, when you go to one of these meetings where boardman is potential for one of these projects? How many of the boardman representatives have an opportunity to vote?
2.
Okay,
It would be myself and the mayor. Would be the people that I would assume are encouraged to attend and to vote.
okay, and so then the extra representatives that you have suggested this evening would participate in what manner?
in case one of us would be ill and
Okay.
not come, and where does the 3 come in?
So if I might, so
Yes,
under CREZ 2, it was the mayor, Karen, and another counselor acted as an alternate. Under CREZ 3, they're allowing 2 elected officials and staff. So basically, it would be the mayor, another counselor, Karen, and then the alternate would act if any one of those 3 were gone, then they have the right to vote. So that's what's a little different with CREZ 3. But you can continue to keep it at 2 counselor, or one counselor and staff, and then have an alternate. It's up to you. But at a minimum, they said you can have two elected officials and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a concern?
I'm just curious as to what the inner workings of it were and why people were being selected as they were from what. And as it stands right now, it sounds like you're recommending city council members. Nobody from staff, or did I miss that?
I think they're the only elected officials available.
But we can choose staff also.
Mhm.
Oh, so your point is you're recommending city councilors?
I'm recommending myself
Yes,
and the mayor.
and then Brenda and Isaac as alternatives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there something else you'd like to see?
No. I just would like to understand how it's working going forward. That's all.
And I think that it's all about history. You know,
If it needs to be said, I'd be happy to,
okay,
just because of, nothing, no negative, I didn't get that by my question or anything. But just because it was proposed and nothing was said, I would be happy to do that.
and I do know that when Sandy was on, we made accommodations for, she worked and she could get off on Friday morning, so we try to meet on Fridays, and I think they're willing to do that for us, because, hopefully we get to be at the table pretty often. Still.
So do we need to just agree on the appointments, or that's just where we're going, or how does that, what's formality?
I think you need something official.
Something official? Okay, so we're gonna need a motion.
Myself. I motion to approve the nominations for the CREZ 3 board.
Do we need to nominate people first, or, because I think Karen's just making like, she's imparting information, like who has expressed interest, who has. Who's scheduled by.
I make a motion to nominate staff as Karen, Mayor, Brenda, and then you as an alternate.
Make a motion to move forward nominating Karen, Brenda, and Paul, and myself.
Paul Keith. Excuse me. You'll get 2 balls.
We do. For the CREZ 3 board representation. Maybe a few extra words.
All right, I think that we get through that. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion anybody would like to have over this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we have that. The next item for business is the change of meeting date discussion.
We put that back on the agenda, because Mr. Beagle was interested in that.
Well, it was tabled.
Pardon me?
It was tabled last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still stand by my previous motion.
Yes,
Could we have a time break?
we may. Yes. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Okay, now give Mary time to come in here.
Are we muted? We take a break.
We're still muted and recorded, so
We are muted. though.
we are not muted. We are unmuted again, because we're still in,
Okay,
unless you adjourn for a 5-hour recess or 5 minutes. Aaron was very planning on coming in. Okay. Aaron,
Yeah.
okay.
I heard you.
I wasn't sure if you did or not. I saw your back to the camera.
And I got to thinking, but way after we started, that we weren't so proud of that you couldn't have come in with a chair. But we decided it's much easier to come do the presentations in person than it is on Zoom if we can do that.
You have anything to upload or share on the screen?
No, I shared it all in the packet.
And we told him that he had to be quick.
Well, I was just wondering for anybody online that doesn't have the packet. It's hard to understand when you're not able to see it, so.
Like I bought pictures.
It's just down from the new dog.
What's that?
I say, it's just down from the new dog.
That's not.
No.
So the way streets over. You know what this is,
Over by the new, this whole electric.
Oh, down by UBC
well, and if it's,
in cul-de-sac.
well, yeah, it's really closer to, you know, that, you know, that.
You're welcome.
It's been-
Everybody.
And the man goes back on the trailer.
I can't figure it out. I tried it.
You're doing just fine.
Oh, it's already
Yeah.
storage.
Yeah, it's him, he's wanting.
Well, it's down.
Yes, I agree. And, you know, we were talking about how many years that has been in.
did we need to do any more discussion about change of the meeting date discussion? Or where are we at with that? We took a break. I thought we never left it because we were still recording and we're back.
Now, I understand, Mr. Mayor, that Mr. Byler said that he would talk to the planning commissioners on alternating their meeting date, and I have not heard from him on his request to the commissioners. So I would like to hear on that, if I may.
I've got a couple of polls that I need to send out to planning commission members who asked that question.
Oh, it hasn't been done yet?
No,
Okay.
Can I ask a question also when you're here?
Oh.
If I recall correctly, Barry, were you saying that moving our meetings could create potential conflicts with planning commission based on the timeframes that you need to
the
be able to
timeframes
provide
between the
public?
two, the timeframes between
Notice.
the two meetings.
Okay. In the past, how many times have you seen that could have been an issue?
As we get busier and busier, I envision it happening a lot.
Okay,
Because I'm trying to put together 2 or 3 public hearings for planning commission every month now.
2 or 3 a
Last year,
month?
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so we'll go on to vacation of easement rights.
Okay,
Thank you, Barry.
on March 18, 2021, the city received a request from Douglas Johnson, the owner of Columbia Basin Self-Storage. The request is to vacate the utility easement which runs between two properties, tax lots 13 and 1400 of Moore County Tax Map 4N25 9AD. The utility easement was dedicated to the public on April 27, 1981 as a large 44+ acre parcel. And the dedication is for all streets and utilities that are identified in the entire 44 acres. As this is only removing a portion of it, there is another step that Mr. Johnson will have to go through, and that is boundary adjustment survey, so we can get a legal description of just a piece of the property that is being vacated. He wants to do this so he can do additional construction on lot 1400. And vacating the utility easement requires city council action, as the city is essentially giving up rights for use of ground for the use it was dedicated for. In review of this application request, staff reached out to Umatilla Electric Co-op to assure that there were no UEC lines in easement. UEC provided the map that was in the packet. They're basically around the right of way and nothing in the easement. To the west side or the east side of the property, tax lot 1400, there is a cleanout for a city sewer line. So that part of but that's not part of this application for vacating the parts that are on Mr. Johnson's property. Since there are no utilities no utilities within the easement and no future plans for the easement, it is the recommendation to staff to grant the vacation request with direction for us to bring in an ordinance to the city council for signatures. Essentially, you would be approving the vacation and then we put together, Mr. Johnson will end up having to come up with that legal description for the vacation in order to be able to pass the ordinance. Question?
No, I think you answered it very well in the report and tell me what was going on, what had to be done, and what you're not have, what the request is.
And by bringing it to you tonight, basically what we've done is if whatever your vote is, he hasn't had to take the step of the zoning and not zoning, but the survey work. And so if you were to turn it down, then he's not out of an additional bunch of money.
So do I have a motion to approve the vacation or the easement vacation request?
I so move.
I don't think I can vote on this. Doug is actually related through marriage to myself, so I have to abstain from voting on this, I believe.
You don't gain any financial.
So I can vote.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, I just wanted to voice that.
I don't believe it would be a conflict.
Thank you.
Mr. Beagle,
I did make a motion to approve the vacation of the requirements stipulated in Barry's letter memorandum.
I would second that.
can I have a motion in a second? Were there any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the easement vacation request passes.
Thank you.
You bet. I had a, something to add on to this. It looks like I was asked to do the League of Oregon City roles of counselors.
Right. So we're gonna show you a little bit of a video. So.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elected Essentials, the virtual edition. If it wasn't for COVID-19, we would be doing this training live in 12 regions across the state. But in an effort to protect everybody's safety, we're going to try and do it virtually this year. While it may not be as engaging as years past, hopefully you still learned something today. Now, let's get started. So first, for the most part, almost all cities in Oregon are what we call a council manager form of government. And that's what probably most of you are familiar with. There's a few outliers in Oregon, but most people, this is the type of government you're going to work under. And when we talk about the council manager form of government, what we like to do with the League is we like to describe it as that's your team. Each city has its own unique team. And the members of that team are traditionally composed of your city council, your mayor, your council president, the city manager, although I'll make a caveat. We typically see city managers in our larger to medium-sized cities. Once you get to the smaller type of cities, we typically call those city administrators. And then in our really small cities, you have a city recorder who acts a lot of times the same way a city administrator or city manager would. So when we use the word city manager in this program and throughout the entirety of Elected Essentials, know that we're also trying to include city administrators and in the smallest of small cities, sometimes your recorders as well. Other two members of the team include your city staff, and last, but perhaps most importantly, they're your citizens. Citizens are part of your city. In fact, my guess is almost all of you, particularly as elected officials, you started out on the team as a citizen before you moved into becoming a city councilor, a mayor, or council president. So, like any good team, what we need to first do is we need to define what our individual roles are. So if you're familiar with sports, then you know that whether it's baseball, football, or soccer, depending on the position you play on the team, you're going to have a different role and a different responsibility. And that's true when it comes to your team or the city. You're going to have different roles and different responsibilities. So let's first kind of take a global look at the entire council's main roles, and then we'll delve into some of those team parts that you all play. So city councils in general, this is you acting as a collective body. You really have 5 key components, and you can see them there on the slide. The first one that's right in the middle, is you have centralized power. And this is really important to understand. A lot of times the League will get a call and somebody will say, I was recently elected into council, and I know that I was elected because I was a champion for a particular position. And I promised the people who voted for me that I would get X accomplished in the first 6 months. And I just can't get it done. The rest of the council won't come on board. And what Jamie Hafer and I always say is, well, how many people are on your council? And if you say 5 people, Jamie and I are going to respond by saying, then you need to learn to count to 3. And what I mean is you're going to have to get a majority of your council to agree with you. And that's because individual councilors and individual mayors don't have their own inherent power. All of your power as a council member is wrapped up into the centralized council. It's the council who makes decisions, not individual councilors. And it's really important that we keep that in mind, because what that does is it tells you what you can and cannot do, and it also forces you to work together as a team to find common ground and consensus. One of the other components of the overall council is you work as a legislative body. This is the one that you probably think the most of when you ask people what city councils do. And by a legislative body, what we typically mean is you're passing ordinances, you're essentially making local laws, and that's when you act in the legislative capacity. The next way or next role that you have is that you're your city's policymakers. You're the big visionaries for your community. So what I like to say is you need to sit down as a city council and figure out, where is my council going? What is important to my city? What do we want it to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? So you take the big view of your community and you put together plans and documents and guiding principles that set your city on the path that you have planned. So you are in charge of the big picture for your community. You also have limited hiring authority. Most councils in Oregon only are allowed to hire, supervise, and fire 1 to maybe 3 employees. So the big one is usually the city manager. You're typically the entity that hires, reviews, evaluates, and terminates your city manager. You also typically are the entity that gets to hire the city attorney, and again, you could terminate the city attorney as well. And in some limited instances, there are a few cities in Oregon where the city council hires the police chief. But regardless, that's it. That's the only person you get to hire, supervise, and fire. And if you want to know who you get to hire, supervise, and fire, you're going to find that in your city charter. And if it's not given the council authority to hire somebody in the charter, then that's it. You get to control those specifically identified people. The last overall general rule that your council's going to play is with limited administrative and quasi-judicial powers. So what does this mean? It kind of seems like lawyer speak, and it probably is. So the administrative role is really, it's kind of almost straightforward. It's where you're not passing laws, but you're taking almost some type of internal type of action or something that's not binding. So for example, there's 2 key ways that I describe administrative powers. So let's say, for example, that your city wants to adopt a new personnel manual that applies to your entire employees, because that's kind of a big policy, right? It's not whether or not you're hiring, subordinate employees or firing them. You're really kind of setting the policy for how employees are treated in your organization. So when you adopt that new personnel manual, you're probably doing it via a resolution instead of passing it as an ordinance. And so that would be one example of you utilizing your administrative powers. Another one would be when you've already had an ordinance, and the ordinance says we've got to do X, Y, and Z, and then we can issue a permit to somebody. So let's say you've got a business license ordinance in your community. Your ordinance is going to say, we need these 10 things to come from an applicant, and if we get those things, then we have to issue them a business permit. So when you as a city council issues that business permit, you're not really using any discretionary actions, you're just acting in an administrative capacity. You're checking to make sure those 10 things were submitted, and then you're administratively issuing them the business permit. Your quasi-judicial powers, that's really when you're kind of acting like a judge almost, which is why you see the word judicial in there. So when you are typically going to see this, in my experience as a city council, is in a land use context, or if you're revoking some type of permit. So let's go back to that business permit example. So let's say you as a city have issued a business permit to XYZ company. And your city manager comes to you one day and says, hey, XYZ company has violated the terms of their permit, and we are going to terminate their permit. We're going to revoke it. So the city manager revokes the permit, and then the business owner appeals to the city council and says, revoking my permit was wrong, I didn't do anything incorrectly, I'm entitled to have that permit back. And so that appeal is coming to you as a city council. And when you are hearing that appeal, you're going to be acting as a judge. And what's different when you're acting as a judge with your quasi-judicial powers is you have to kind of behave the same way you would expect any judge to behave. And that means you can't really get any information from outside of your hearing. So if XYZ business owner wants to approach you in the grocery store before the hearing and tell you their side of the story, can't do that because you'd be getting information outside the hearing. So you really almost have to think of yourself, if I was going into a court hearing myself, how would I expect a judge to behave? And that's typically what you're going to need to do. My guess is when you get to your first land use hearing, either your city planner or your city attorney is going to give you some more specific instructions on what you need to do in quasi-judicial context. But as a baseline understanding, it's really where you need to be fair and impartial, and you're making your decisions based on the facts and the evidence you hear during the hearing itself and nothing else. Okay, so that's generally what the city council is going to do as a whole. And so one of the big questions that we get a lot of the week is, okay, great, we kind of know a summary of what we're supposed to do, Patty, but how do we specifically know what we have to do in our own particular community? And there's usually 3 areas that you can look at for that. The first is gonna be your city charter. That's a big one. That's kind of akin to your US Constitution or your state constitution. Your city's charter is essentially your city's constitution. It's the #1 governing document that you have. So that's the first place. It's not on the slide, but another place that you're also going to find your powers and authority are sometimes in your municipal code or standalone ordinances. And one of the key places I often see something becoming part of your code is when your council adopts rules of procedure. So rules of procedure are really going to dictate how your council acts when it meets. So it's going to define who gets called on, who sets the agenda, how much time the public is given to speak on something, how those rules can be changed. And we'll see a lot of cities take those rules of procedure and actually adopt them as ordinances into their code. And then the other place is sometimes policies and procedural manuals. So what you'll see occasionally is it's kind of a lower level of criteria that city councils sometimes have to use. And those are rare, we don't see them as much, but those are kind of the core characteristics where you say, I want to know what I'm supposed to do in this situation, or I want to understand my role better. You want to look at those documents. I would typically say, what are your city's governing documents? And those are going to be included there, and that's going to tell you what you need to do. So then you have your mayor. So in a lot of instances, the mayor is part of the council. Sometimes in some cities in Oregon, the council actually appoints the mayor directly from their own ranks. In some cities, the mayor is elected at large from members of the community. But in almost every case of a charter that I've read in Oregon, your mayors have specific tasks. And what I'm going to tell you is to know exactly what you can do as a mayor in your city is read your charter, read your ordinances, and read your rules of procedure. They're going to give you specific instructions on what you are expected to do and what you can do as a mayor. But generally, there are 3 key roles that we do expect mayors to play, and they're pretty consistently defined this way in your charters. The first is that the mayor tends to be the public face of the community, right? They're the person who represents the city at city events. So you open a new dog park, it's probably the mayor who's cutting the ribbon. You want somebody to go and speak to the media about a recent ordinance that was passed, it's probably the mayor who's the face of the community. They are the person who is kind of the face of the city and the spokesperson for the council. That's their #1 role. The second role, and probably where the mayor wields the most power, is with the presiding officer position. And what I mean by that is the mayor is the chair of the council. So what we typically see is that it's the mayor who works with city staff to set the agenda for council meetings. It's the mayor who opens council meetings. It's the mayor who calls on different councilors and recognizes them before they can speak or make comment during those meetings. And unfortunately, sometimes, because it is a city council meeting, there will be conflict. And it will, at some point in your career, probably happen where you and another councilor have a difference of opinion. And it will be up to the mayor to make sure that that difference remains professional and respectful, that people aren't talking over each other, cutting each other off, hopefully never reducing ourselves to calling each other names. So they are the presiding officer. It's also really common as a presiding officer that the mayor has authority to appoint members of the public and councilors to city committees. So, for example, a lot of cities will have committees on parks, or if your city has an annual festival that's really important to you, it's always organized each year by a committee. A lot of times what you'll see is the charter will give the mayor authority to appoint persons to serve on those committees. And one of the last things that we see mayors do as presiding officers is they sign on the dotted line, so to speak. It's their John Hancock on the ordinances that you pass, on the resolutions that you pass, and on contracts that the city enters into. So they're kind of a preeminent signer of all city documents. And the last main role that I like to say mayors play is they are your city's chief facilitator. And by that, I mean they're the person who's facilitating discussions amongst councilors as a council, and they also try and facilitate dialogue between the council and the city manager. What I've seen in a lot of cities, in my years of experience, is that city managers will regularly meet with their mayors, maybe once a week, and they will meet with individual counselors, but that's maybe only once every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. So it's kind of up to the mayor during council meetings to kind of keep everybody abreast and facilitate that information and those discussions. So they are the organization's chief facilitator, both externally and internally. So your council president. So some cities also have what's called a council president position. And in my experience, what typically happens is when the council convenes at the first meeting in January, they elect from among their membership a council president. One of the main things that a council president does is that they act as a mayor when the mayor is absent from one of the meetings. So that means that if the mayor is absent, it's the council president who's going to become the chief facilitator, is going to become the public face of the community. They are going to assume the entire role of the mayor. In some cities, you'll see on the slide there, the council president is actually elected to represent the councilors themselves. So they're not just stepping in kind of as the mayor, they're also the council's chosen candidate to kind of be the council spokesperson as well. So it's kind of a little bit higher priority of the overall council. And then depending on your charter provisions, a lot of times I will see that when council presidents take over, they don't lose any of the power. And by that I mean, there's a lot of cities in Oregon where the mayor only gets to vote in the event of a tie. And so when the council president, who always gets to vote, assumes the role of mayor, because the mayor is absent, the council president will retain the right to vote, even though they are technically acting in the mayor's absence. So your other key figure on your city team is going to be your city manager. And remember, I said at the beginning, we're not trying to exclude anybody. So this can include city administrators. And if you're a reporter in a small city, a lot of these duties may seem like they're exactly yours as well. But I'm going to use city managers generally, because that's what we predominantly see. So your city manager is basically the CEO of your city. They're the person who's running the ship. So what this means is that it's the city manager who manages all of the city staff. So if you're a small city and you only have 4 employees, the city manager manages 4 employees. If you're a big city, I came from a really big city where we had about 500 employees, and the city manager would be managing 500 employees. It also means that as a city manager, you hire, recruit, supervise, evaluate, and fire all of those employees. That's the city manager's job, not the city council's job. The city manager is typically the person who's in charge of preparing or at least overseeing the development of the budget that is going to be presented to the city council for adoption. And ultimately, what I like to say is, if you remember back when we talked about the city council's role, we talked about how the council is the visionary for the city. You kind of set the plan, and you give that vision, the plan, to the city manager. The city manager takes that plan from you, and they then put it into effect. So they're responsible for taking the council's vision and making that vision come to life. That's one of the key things that city managers do. The other main job that city managers do is that they are the chief advisor to city councils. They're the person that's supposed to give you all their professional advice, their respected advice, their trusted advice. They are your advisor. They provide you objective information, data, any research or information you need to make your decisions as policymakers are going to come from your city manager or other staff that the city manager relies upon. They're going to give you their analysis and their assessment. And then you get to decide what to do. I always used to tell my council, you don't have to take my advice. You don't get to tell me what my advice is. And it's the same for city managers. So the city manager is going to give you their best advice on how to proceed with an action, and it's up to you to decide whether you follow it or not. But you don't, as a council, get to tell the city manager, this is the advice you have to give me, if that makes sense. So this diagram is an interesting one. I pulled it actually from the International City County Management Association, one of their trainings. So it's not mine or Delise, and in full disclosure here. What I like this chart for is, if you look at the bottom chart, you'll kind of see a dotted line that kind of works its way down. What it is intending to show is that the relationship between the council and the city manager is really one that kind of ebbs and flows. So if you take, for example, while the city council is creating the vision, right, that's your job. At the same time, you're gonna have the city manager and their staff giving you input and guidance on what should or should not go in that vision. So it's a symbiotic relationship where we're kind of always working together and there's this influx. And so you're going to constantly see a connection between the two types of roles that those specific teammates play. So it's one thing to say, well, this is my job as a council to set the vision. That's correct. But remember, your city manager is your chief policy advisor. So they're going to help you build that vision. You get to decide what it is, but you should probably rely on your city staff for some support in that. So it works together. Okay, so that kind of explains generally what the various members.
And that's it for tonight. That's it for tonight. Because she goes on for 2 hours.
She likes her ring, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's
She's
not
always
very
saying that ring.
nervous tick.
It's a nervous tick, yeah.
A nervous tick.
Oh, so who stayed with us?
A lot of people.
All right, so we'll go down to our next spot, police report.
So I'll keep it real short, because we did have a video, so everybody should have received the police report for last month. And are there any questions regarding that report? Okay, real quick, I'll just say that our detective event representative, Greg Sherman, retired. His last day was April 1st, I guess. And unfortunately, he didn't stay for full, so he is done. He retired with 31 years or more experience in law enforcement, so we wish him luck on his future ventures. We did what we call an assessment center, which took an entire day. We had 2 applicants from within our agency who were interested in the detective position for the narcotics team. We used the VENT team members and staff to go through a organized process to evaluate who would be the best fit for that position. Both candidates did an exceptional job. I'm very proud of both of them. But in the end, we ended up selecting Corey Rosen as our new VENT detective, and he took on that assignment mid-month and was able to work under Detective Sherman's guidance to kind of help transition for about 2 weeks. So I'm happy to say that that position is filled and they are busy as usual. He took off running. They're just, nothing stops with that organization. So aside from that, knock on wood, we are fully staffed, healthy at this point. So we've got all of our officers covering shifts now.
So Officer Rosen is a dual role then, and the officer.
No, so Officer Rosen's primary assignment now will be full-time narcotics enforcement. And as needed, we can bring him back, but we try not to disrupt that team. That team, I think you remember Sergeant Jackson explaining that there's 11 agencies that participate. And so each one of those detectives has a role. And so we try not to pull them off the road or out of the team and put them back on the road unless we absolutely have to. Plus, they kind of need to try to keep a lower profile. They don't like it to be.
So who filled Officer Rosen's spot?
We hired Tanner Cooney, who was a 7-year employee for Morrow County Sheriff's Office. And when we posted the position, he went through a hiring process. So we are fully staffed. Are there any questions? I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff, but we're kind of running out of time. So thank you.
Thank you. Building Department report.
So it's not really, last month, statistically wise, I don't have that from me. It seemed kind of slow, but it didn't seem slow in our office. Thank you. And, but it wasn't slow for Jack. So as of April 1st, We have cycled into residential plumbing and electrical. Code cycle is now 2021 instead of 2017, so kind of going up. That starts April 1st and then phases into October. So between now and October, contractors can pick which code they want to use. Our Gilpin County IGA is so close. I'm gonna introduce Gilpin County Board of Commissioners tomorrow. So we're that close. Of course, you will see what's happening with Family Dollar, it's come along. Residential is just going through the roof, sorry. But that's about it. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Public Works Department report.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's in your packet, so hopefully that you can read it at your leisure. They're busy, it's getting springtime, getting water on, getting the lawn fertilized. So,
Committee reports. Anything for committee reports?
I think the only thing is Cynthia Navarro was on our planning commission and she has sent in her resignation, so she'll be dropping off there. And I think if you know of anybody that wants to be on the planning commission, have them come over. We're starting, planning commission is like everything else, they're gonna start to be busier than they have been being sometimes, some years. And it's a great place to learn how things function, like how you apply for things, because zoning and planning are all of their own kind of thing. So if you know somebody that might be interested to volunteer, that'd be great.
What do they mean? If you don't mind me asking. Right now, the third Wednesday of the month.
Thank you. City manager report.
I don't know if I have anything to add to my the
Letter.
letter that I sent you. I think that we're happy that almost all of us have had our COVID first shot and second shot. If you know of anybody that needs shots, let us know, because every day it seems like we have people that we have people that want to know if there's a name of someone that needs a vaccination, so it'd be great if you share that with us.
Any councilors have anything they'd like to share? Yes.
I think you all were in receipt of the same email about grant writing, and I forwarded it to Karen to see if the city would be interested in funding it. It's a almost $400 course in June, I believe it's June 14th, and it's to teach people how to be grant writers. So it's been a number of years, but I did write a grant for the city, didn't get very much money, just 15 grand, but still. I think that's what it was, wasn't it?
It doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't make any difference. I would like to know if the city would be interested in funding a course. And either sending staff or myself and staff, or just myself to a training. I don't know about if that's the right one. I didn't really investigate very far. I just looked at it and thought, you know, there's a lot of things that we could do, including the dog park, that we could look for grant money to help support.
I think if you were interested, we probably have some money in the budget for training. You know, that, I mean, I don't think that I would want to send 10 of you. You know, it's not worth $4,000. But if someone who's interested and wants training, we have money in a budget. And you understand how that works. I don't have to preach to the choir.
How's the city sign coming, the marquee?
Yeah. How's fun?
The
How's the
marquee
marquee
sign.
coming?
Oh, the sun.
The electric, I got ahold of the electrician, to put the meter base in and hook up the sign, and I just haven't heard back from him. I just got ahold of him yesterday, so. I'm trying to.
Yeah, we had that conversation
Yeah.
2 times so far.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
and it's-
Last time.
all the quality signs hold the electrical permit, which tells us that they can put it in, but they're not licensed in the state of Oregon. And so without a meter base, Unitil Electric's not gonna put in a meter base for it, and so you got to hold with the electrician to get that accomplished.
It's just,
Yeah.
that's not my finest project. Oh, but I'll blame it on to BCDA. So y'all heard it here.
No, I blame it on Unitil Electric. I just say don't put it in until it gets done.
They got the transformer and everything in now, so.
So I like to Karen on our last meeting, was just call them every day and tell them that we're trying to do it.
And I said, please so. So in your packet,
Yes, she is.
in your packet, there are a couple of, it says council chamber evacuation rights. I think you need to look at these and take them into your mind about if there was some kind of a fire or confrontation in here. Because I don't believe I've ever taken anyone or tour of the building. So I probably won't do it tonight, but I'll try to remember to do that, so that you at least know that if you went out that door and went straight through that conference room, the back door is right there, and it's obvious, the front door is right there. And so,
I did a tour when it was built.
pardon me?
I did a tour when it was built.
Oh, sure, yes, sure. So anyway, we're kind of going through our safety manual, and so I thought, well, probably ought to know this. Okay,
The last thing that was on the mayor, only thing I have to say is, thank you for helping me on, doing it the right way. The verbiage, I don't get offended by stuff like that. If we need to adjust it, I appreciate the comments of, hey, we need to do it this way, we can say it that way. Appreciate that, that's all the comments. I had already brought up the sign, presentation sign. That's in our monthly meeting, or tenant meeting, sign. Yes.
Are the planning commission minutes in here just for informational purposes, or is it something for us to address? This is for information. Okay.
we usually try to remember to put that in all the time, just so that the council will kind of keep up on what the planning commission is doing. Then we kind of didn't get it done, and so we want to try to get you guys so that you have a better feeling.
We used to also get the county commission's meeting minutes.
You're gonna have to go online.
Well, no, I
There you go.
understand. There may be some.
Well, it just would be pages. If 62 pages wasn't enough,
83.
it was 83. And we need to probably have a discussion about how much paper we want. Well, because I don't like to print this amount of paper. I'm okay with sending you a ton of stuff, but so you can look at it on your iPads or on your computer, but printing out. Yeah, I like it much smaller. You might let us know. If you're okay with just the high copies, and we'll discuss. Let's go into executive session.
Okay, I hereby take this out of regular meeting and go into executive session. So we'll be,
Before we disconnect, do you have any plans on making any decisions coming out of executive session?
No.
So you might tell the people online that you have no intentions of making any decisions, you can adjourn. meeting after you return from your executive session, so there's no reason for them to stay on.
Okay, with that information I was given, we will not be coming out of executive session to, with any decisions. We will, therefore, we will just be ending when we're done in executive session. So members of the community who are still watching, you may log off at this time for the night. Thank you for coming.
Good night.